Barak Shalom, everyone. It's Out the Box Kingdom. Talk with me, Out the Box Kingdom. I hope you all are having a wonderful, wonderful yum. Man, let me tell y'all, I have truly been enjoying reading Bereshith and really taking my time to read it. Because when you really sit there and actually read one chapter at a time and really see what's within that one chapter, there's so many hidden nuggets, hidden treasures, or you can say gems in it if you're really paying attention to what you're reading. And more about Abba's, nature, his character, and when he says a thing, when he says he's going to do it. And sometimes he can tell you the exact point, like in 7 days, I'm going to do this, or he may not tell you at all. He just say, I shall do this. When he doesn't give you a date, it's more so you just have to trust and believe in him, but the prophecy will be fulfilled. And so today's topic is just what I'm saying. The prophecy shall be and will be fulfilled, right? And that goes in regards to what he has spoken throughout scriptures, through the mouths of the prophets, what he has spoken in Revelations, as far as the plagues, and what he has spoken to you in your own personal time. What is Abba what is it that he has spoken to you or over you through a mouth of a prophet, what he's going to do in your life, right? And we have to hold on to that, because the enemy is very cunning, very sneaky. When I say he's very cunning, when he told Eve, or when Abba gave Adam and Koa the instructions not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because see, when Abba gives you a word, a prophetic word, the enemy will come in with counterfeits, right? He will try to lure you in a place where you try to figure it or make it happen on your own. And that's still a form of witchcraft, right? We see how people are talking about manifesting and the law of attraction, and what is the other book? The book of the secret or something like that. All that is witchcraft that they're using to try to bring forth something into existence, right? But it's that's the wrong form of it, because Satan is the one that plants that seed, right? It's the counterfeit, right? So when it comes to the knowledge of good and evil, that's where you have these self-help books, right? It's literally saying you're your own God and you can make this happen yourself, but it's in the wrong way, because it comes with a cost, right? The celebrities, the lives they have is coming with a cost. Either they are having to sacrifice their family members, get involved in some Sodom and Gomorrah mess. I don't need to go in detail, but we know in scripture, every little thing that Hollywood is doing is abominable nature when it comes to Abba Yahuah's word, right? But I'm not sitting up here to expose Hollywood, right? I'm here to talk about the prophecy shall be fulfilled in your life, right? Because, for instance, Noah had a covenant with Abba Yahuah, and that sign is the representation of the rainbow, right? That he will not wipe out all humanity anymore, because he knows that man's heart is corrupted. But he's not going to keep resetting the arets by constantly bringing a flood, right? Okay. And so that was his covenant with Noah, and that's what he did. He didn't start it over again, right? Because it wasn't too long after that, through his children, which is through Ham, we know that that's when Nimrod came forth, and we know Nimrod, which came forth from Cush, was known as a mighty one, right? So this is where we see now where there's a lot of Egyptian sun worship and all these deity that comes from Cush and pretty much Ham's people, right? We also know that Kenan was cursed by Noah. He said, "Curse be Kenan, that Kenan shall serve Japheth and and Shem, right? It's interesting that Shem was more so, it said that Japheth shall dwell in the tent. He said, Yahuah, enlarge Japheth and let him dwell in the tent of Shem, right? So I had to look up the word tent, and it means tabernacle, right? So I was just like, wow. So if you go on to the next chapter, which is chapter 11, Bereshit chapter 11, this is where it goes in detail about the lineage of, or should I say bloodline of Shem, which is at the last couple of verses, we see where Abraham come forth, right? Sarah and Lot, right? So when we go in chapter 12, this is where you see Abba Yahuah telling Abraham that he said, go yourself out of your land, from your relatives and from your father's house, to a land in which I show you, and I shall make you a great nation and bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And this is chapter 12, verses 3 in Bereshit. And I shall bless those who bless you, and curse him who curses you. And in you all the clans of the Eret shall be blessed. Right? So Abraham, trusting in Abba Yahuah, leaves the land of his fathers and go pretty much where Abba wants him to go, which is the land of Canaan. Right? So I was like, okay. And so, and the Canaanites at that time was dwelling in that land. And what I loved about it is, Abba Yahuah appears to Abraham. And this is where we see this in, Bereshit chapter 12, verse 7, where he says, and Yahuah appeared to Abram and said, to your seed I give this land. And he built there an altar to Yahuah, who had appeared to him. And from there he moved to the mountain of east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And he built there an altar to Yahuah and called on the name of Yahuah, right? So ain't that interesting that Yahuah told him, to your seed I give this land, right? So for all we know, if you're really paying attention, Abraham hadn't said anything to Yahuah yet about his seed. We don't see this until the following chapter, right? Which is in chapter 15 of Bereshit, when he says about he doesn't have an heir to pass on, a seed to pass on his heir to. And he thought I was going to go to the Damascus, right? And so as I'm sitting up here reading this, right, and it's interesting that Abraham raised, or he built an altar to Yahuah. And so when I sat there and I thought about that, I said, man, I would like, it's so interesting how you've had a lot of us dwelling in different lands. When I mean different lands, as in, whether from a child growing up, you didn't really have a stable place. Your parents was always moving. It was almost like you pitching a tent, you marking territory. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you've been in that place once before and then you find yourself going back there to live. But the difference is, the first time you lived there, you wasn't walking with Yahuah, but now you're walking with Yahuah, and he has you going back to that place, and you just there temporarily, but you're there praying in your apartment, like you're raising an altar. You're marking that territory for him to reign, you know what I'm saying, while you're there, right? Taking dominion, subduing it. You don't even know how much spiritual warfare, well, it is spiritual warfare, but you don't know how much you're taking back when you're praying. You're marking that place. So if you notice in chapter 12, you will see Abraham literally everywhere he went, he was raising, or you'll see Jacob and Isaac, all them raising up an altar to Yahuah where they were at, almost like marking territory, taking dominion, right, subduing. And then we know that Abraham, it's either Abraham or Isaac, I'll come back and rephrase it, that drilled the wells, you know what I'm saying? So, but I don't want to get off topic. I get so excited when I'm teaching or when I'm sharing the word. I love this. And so Abraham, or Abram, because his name hadn't been changed yet, he pitches his tent. Now, isn't it interesting how Satan does the complete he's the counterfeit, right? You got all these so-called altars, which we know as obelisks and pillars, all around America, over there in Rome and all this other stuff. I said pillars and obelisks because it's true. Look it up, right? But those are actually oriented, or more so representing sexual organs of things, circles and all this other stuff. It's still going back to Nimrod, the worship of Nimrod, right? Which is the complete opposite to who we supposed to worship, which is Abba Yahuah, right? Think about it, skyscrapers, right? We got skyscraper buildings, the Twin Towers, all those things. Remember the Tower of Babel? They tried to build something up to the heavens so they could try to take reign. Think about the tower that's over there in Dubai. They try to say, oh, the tallest building, blah, blah, blah. They're always trying to build up. If you see what I'm saying? Like building up, right? But we know how they have built that on the backs of the Hebrews, right? So back to the prophecies shall be fulfilled. So if you fast forward to Bereshit chapter 15, this is where it says, after these events, the word of Yahuah came to Abraham in a vision, saying, do not be afraid, Abram, I am your shield, your reward is exceedingly great. And Abram said, Adonai, Yahuah, what would you give me, seeing I go childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, see, you have given me no seed, and see, one born in my house is my heir. And see, the word of Yahuah came to him, saying, this is not your heir, but he who comes from your own body is your heir. And he brought him outside and said, look now towards the Shemayim and count the stars, if you're able to count them. And he said to him, see, so are your seed. And he believed Yahuah, and he reckoned it to him for obedience. And he said to him, I am Yahuah who brought you out of Ur of Chaldeans to give you this land to inherit it. Once again, I was talking about the inheritance of that land, right? And he said, Adonai Yahuah, whereby do I know that I possess it? And he said to him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer and a 3-year-old female goat and a 3-year-old ram and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. And he took all these to him and cut them in the middle and placed each half opposite the other. But he did not cut the birds. And the birds of prey came down on the carcass. And Abram drove them away. And it came to be when the sun was going down and a deep sleep fell upon Abram, that see, a frightening great darkness fell upon him. And he said to Abram, know for certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and they shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. But the nation, this is verse 14, but the nation in whom they serve, I'm going to judge, and afterwards let them come out with great possessions. Now, as for you, you are to go to your fathers in peace. You are to be buried at a good old age. And then in the fourth generation, they shall return here. For the lawlessness of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to be when the sun went down and it was dark, that see a smoking oven and a burning torch passing between those pieces. On the same Yom, Yahuah made a covenant with Abram, saying, I have given this land to your seed, from the river of Mitzrayim to the great river, the river Pharat, with the Canaanites and the Kenizzites and the Quadamites and the Kittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim and the Amorites, and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jeshubites. So we all know that literally the tribes that were mentioned there are technically from the lineage of Ham. If you go back and read, especially the Canaanites. So if you go back and read, that is coming from the lineage of Ham. Yeah, and from definitely from Kenan. So, like Noach said at the beginning, curse this Kenan and he will serve his brothers. So, but something that really stood out to me is, have we all, and which I know a lot of us have been at this time, when before we even prayed something, Abba knows the desires of our heart. So apparently he already knew in advance that Abram desired to have children, right? But Sarah was barren. However, he spoke already in advance that his seed will be heirs of that land. But at that time being, I believe Abraham kind of let that go over his head. There had to be some type of doubt or something there. Even though he raised an altar, even though he praised Yahuah, it's interesting how the next chapter, he was like concerned about his next heir. And I was like, how did Abraham miss that? How did he? But that's what happens when we are listening to Abba Yahuah with our fleshly ears versus our spiritual ears, right? Because he'll say something and we kind of dismiss it, like, oh, okay. Like he'll say, oh, I'm getting ready, there's finances coming soon. And he'd be like, oh, okay. Because there's a part of you that's like, the last time you kept telling me that, it took a long time for that finances to come. So, okay. It's almost like I hear you, but it's like I don't hear you, because it goes into that scripture, and the enemy knows how to bring disappointment in. And it goes with that scripture that comes from Mashal, which is Proverbs 13:12. Expectancy draws out, makes the heart sick, but to longing comes true is a tree of life, right? And so a lot of us been just waiting on these promises, right? But when Abba said, I will do, he's going to do it. And Abram is a prime example of that, because when he had this deep conversation, even though Abba had already told him in advance, your seed is going to inherit this land, right? Abraham still went to him and said, and shared with him his concern. I'm not going to have an heir. And he's like, actually you are. And this is going to be how big your lineage is going to be. But what I love about the transparency of Abba Yahuah when it came to Abraham's prophecy being fulfilled, what he prophesied to him, what he told him, the promise, he showed him what his seed would go through, though. Remember, Joseph had a dream, but Abba didn't show Joseph what he was going to go through for him to be in the position that he was in. However, with Abraham, he showed him in a dream what his seed was going to go through. But however, even after the 400 years of them wandering and being a soldier in the land and serving other people and being mistreated, Abba did say he was going to judge. And they was going to come out with great possession. And guess what? They still was going to inherit that land that he promised him in this very chapter that they was going to inherit. So what I'm saying here is we know that Abraham is known as the father of faith, right? Or belief. And he was known as being a friend to Abba Yahuah. And he had his weakness because when we've waited so long, our flesh, and this is how the enemy tries us to, when our flesh comes in, when Abba said, I'm going to bless you with finances, when we don't see that finances, it's like the bills are more than what's coming in. Or you're trying to support this business and it seems like you're buying more supplies than you got actual customers buying. Or you're waiting on your husband and it seems like your friends are getting married before you. You know what I'm saying? Those things like that. And yet you can still have people come to prophesy. I see this about you. And Abba say he's going to do it. And eventually it's like you begin to almost like you despise the prophecy. And it tells us in scripture not to despise the prophecy, right? Don't despise the small beginnings, right? Don't despise those things, right? And it's like, but then the enemy tries to sow those tares like, oh, and he likes to make it seem like it's from Abba Yahuah. You should do this over here. You should do this over here. Just like with Sarah, she thought it was an idea. Oh, let's get Hagar to have our baby for us. That's going to still be our baby. But then when Hagar was laid down with Abram, Sarah became envious of her because she got pregnant right off the bat. And she's like, look how many times I done slept with my husband and I'm still barren. Like, and she became envious and felt like she had to mistreat her. But you the one that got in your mind, I'm just going to give her to my husband and let him live with her. And we'll take her child as our own. But it's still not your child. I think that's, in a sense, that's why I don't really agree with surrogacy. You know what I'm saying? Because that woman has carried that baby for 9 months. There is a physical attachment to that child that you just can't disconnect from. I think that's highway robbery in a sense, and kind of selfish because you got some women, because they don't want to mess up their body. Let me get somebody that really wants to have the experience of having children, and then you snatch that child from her. She's done the hard work for you to snatch the child from you, right? But it's nothing too hard for Abba Yahuah, because look how he's done Hannah. Hannah cried out to him. She was concerned and she wanted a child. But she said, I will give you back this child. I would, give you this child. You make him however you want him. Just bless me with a child. And he did. And she got Samuel and she did exactly what she said. And guess what? He blessed her with more children. You know what I'm saying? And so what I'm saying here in this, that the prophecy shall be fulfilled. The prophecy, what Yahuah has spoken over your life, no matter how long it takes, it's going to be fulfilled. There's going to be some things he's going to give you in detail of how it's going to happen. And then there's sometimes he's not going to tell you how it's going to happen. Why? Because you'll jump ship just like Jonah did. And he's still going to have his way. I was still going to have his way with you. Right? And so that's a friendship right there. Abba told Abraham exactly what was going to happen, that his seed was going to be afflicted, that they was going to be mistreated, and that they was going to serve these other nations or whatever. But they were going to be judged. Right? what I'm saying here, what I hear Abba saying is trust in him and don't let your heart become discouraged. And I'm saying this because he told me this morning as well. Don't allow the enemy to discourage you, especially in this season. As a lot of us is transitioning and getting ourselves positioned for what's to come. Just because you can't see it does not mean that it's not coming forth. And it's going to come in a way that you least expect it's going to happen. Like Joseph, all he had is the dream of people bowing down to him, but he didn't have the other missing pieces that he was going to go through some things. There will be some times when Abba will tell you what's going to happen. Oh, they're going to fire you from your job. You know what I'm saying? I've had that happen before. I was at this church and I was on, fire. I was just learning my gifts and everything. And this group that I was in, these certain people that called themselves being believers were very envious. They came together like them Pharisees did and lied. And Abba just told me in advance, he said, such and such ministry is going to fire you from your job. And sure enough, I got the phone call, and this person that supposed to have been like the so-called coordinator was like, I got all the evidence I need and da-da-da. He didn't even wanted to hear my side and didn't even try to contact other leaders that I had been in their groups as well. None of that. He just took these individual people that I actually was helping. They was calling me for prayer and everything. And I got removed from my job and I was angry. And he was trying to say that Yahushua don't correct and chastise or something like that. He said he just encouraged people. So you already know that was error. And so I was hurt, but that was the process. That was the beginning of a process. But you see how Abba had warned me ahead of time. They gonna fire you from your job. So when he would warn you ahead of time. He would show you ahead of time to prepare you. Or there may be some things he just he doesn't reveal at that time because you're just not ready. You will jump ship because it's too much for you. But however, what he has spoken over you will come to pass in his own way, in his own timing, and it will happen when you least expect it. You know what I'm saying? When you stop looking for it. And that's how the enemy does when you're looking for something like, oh, is this the time I'm going to get blessed with this? And you're putting all your attention on that. And to me, that could be lust of the eyes or luring you with your eyes, right? Because if you're so focused on it, you're not seeing it come to pass, then you're going to take things in your own hands to try to get it done. And that's how the enemy trapping people. But however, when you said, no, I'm going to get my hands off of it, let me stay focused on what I'm supposed to be focusing on. Because Abba will give you the desires of your heart. He will. But when you have yourself in that heart, have your place in his word and keeping your heart pure where you're not becoming bitter or not angry with Abba Yahuah, because the enemy wants you to get angry with Yah, then you begin to really see, I'm not the only one that's waiting on a promise. You begin to see how Abram had to wait 20 years. Hannah had to wait, those women that were barren in scripture. How the prophets prophesied about Yahushua, but they didn't live to see it. You know what I'm saying? But the prophecy was fulfilled years later. And so all I can say is hold on very close to Abba Yahuah. It's going to come to pass. Far as the judgment of those that are against Yahuah, it's going to happen in its own time, whether you're here or not here. However, what your focus is on is not necessarily the promises, but mostly finishing the race. doing what you've been called to do here on the Reds, and make sure you finish strong. As in, the enemy can't say he had nothing on you. You left this Reds, if that's what he's bringing you to rest, because it was your time. You left here empty. You know what I'm saying? Not because prematurely or because you opened doors to the adversary himself. And so on that note, I'm going to finish with this scripture. The very thing that Abba has started in you, he's going to complete it until the coming of Yahushua Mashiach. So on that note, stay focused, stay prayed up, stay close to the Most High, because he orders your steps as the righteous. Meditate on his word day and night. Stay in a place of worship and give him praise through the good and the bad. And if you got one or two friends that can hold you accountable or you can trust, stay close to them so they can keep you lifted up, your arms lifted up, like Moshe needed Aaron and her to keep his arms lifted up. So that's what you need right now. And okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add this in here. Yahushua had 12 friends. Well, 11, excluding Judas, right? However, he had 3 that he can trust with more secrets. So all that matters is you have friends that you can count on your hands, whether it's 10, if it's 12, then you have 12, but you're going to have at least 2 or 3 or 1 that you can trust with your deepest secret, that when you fall short or you have stumbled, they're not going to be out there plastering you, and they're not going to judge you like Job's friend did when Job was blameless, right? They're going to be there for you. So if you have just 1, 2, or 3 friends that you can call on to pray, that's all you need right now. You don't need a whole bunch of friends right now. Abba will connect you to your tribe that is like-minded like you, and they're not going to steer you astray. Okay? So stop searching for them. He will lead you to them or connect you with them in his own way, in his own time. A lot of us are still going through a purging right now, or still going through our process. So you're very sensitive right now. But let Abba do the work. Let him do the purging, pruning, pressing, connection. You know, he knows who you're supposed to be connected to in every season of your life. However, like I said, it's all about the prophecy being fulfilled. And on that note, he's going to finish what he has started in you. So I hope that encouraged you all. I see y'all next time, and thanks for tuning in with Out the Box Kingdom Talk with me, Out the Box Kingdom. Barak Shalom.